Hey everyone, welcome to the Fargo 3D printing show today. Jake Clark, John Schneider, and Eric Faldy. We got a bunch of different printers, and by a bunch I mean about 5. Well, we only got really 3 in.
Three so
Man,
far.
math is just not really the...
Where'd the 5 come from?
Yeah.
Because we have 5, so we have the Formlabs.
Oh, I forgot, okay.
We have the Formlabs, we have the Raise 3D, we have the Net A8, we have the Mark II. I thought we had one more. Did we only order 4?
I think it's 4.
We didn't order the Prusa 3. Yeah, we only ordered 4.
Wow.
You're the one who placed the orders.
No.
I know now.
I'm not putting it together.
Yeah,
That's
so
Marcus's job.
I guess what printer do we want to talk about first?
Well, you've been working a lot with the Form 2.
Okay, yeah, so I've been working with the Form 2 by Formlabs for about a week. Still getting things, well actually it's not so much dialing things in because the printer works great. I mean, we've not had a failed print yet. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, knock on whatever this table's made
So
out
for
of.
those of you that aren't familiar, the Formlabs Form 2 is a resin-based printer. So most of the printers we talk about on here are FDM printers. So that's your robotic hot glue gun on a gantry where it takes in plastic filament, heats it up, and spits it out through a nozzle and deposits the material very precisely. Now the way a resin printer works is you have liquid plastic, so it's liquid at room temp, looks kind of like, I should probably silence that, but it looks kind of like corn syrup. So the
Consistency of corn syrup.
Yeah, the consistency of corn syrup. And so it's kind of a thick, viscous liquid. And then a UV light, so the build platform, instead of being on the bottom of the bottom of the print, is actually on the top. And then there's a UV laser that shines it from the bottom. And when that UV light hits the resin, it hardens the plastic. So it's a resin that has a photo initiator. So with a very specific wavelength of light, it hardens the plastic. And so it still does that layer by layer by layer, but because of how it's liquid resin and it's not a bead of plastic, so a bead of plastic is going to have kind of a curve to the outside. Even if you have layer heights that are the same thickness, the resin-based printer is going to look smoother because it's not going to have that light refracting going on. It's going to
like this guy here.
Yeah, so it's gonna have more. It's just gonna have more straight edges instead of having that sort of curved out edge from the bead of plastic.
We have a pretty good interview from, I think we talked to 2 people at the Formlabs booth.
Yes.
And I haven't got to that one yet. But we did post Mark Forrest, so
Yes.
This is actually a podcast that's going to happen after the podcast that hasn't been released yet.
Yes.
Timey, wimey, Doctor Who fans. But yeah, we have 6 different materials or something.
Yeah, I think we
I'm gonna
have.
sneeze.
I think we have 6 different materials.
Bless
So
you.
we have some different colored resins. We have clear, which is sort of the most standard of the resins. We have clear,
And that's
black.
what this is.
Yeah. So this is the clear resin.
I think we've only used clear so far,
Yeah,
right?
and the clear resin, you can actually, it's optically clear. So it's not just like 3D printer filament where it says it's clear. No, this you can actually print apart and then sand it, polish it, and you could actually make lenses out of the.
People
out
have
of this,
made lenses,
Yeah, out
yeah.
of this Formlabs material. So clear, and then white and black, pretty straightforward, just white and black resins, and then a gray resin. So
We got the new one.
we did get the new one. So Formlabs at CES actually released a new version of their gray. It's more of a matte gray. It's really good for showing high detail parts, or the really tiny details on parts. Because their old gray was more of a translucent sort of gray, which I didn't think anything of until you saw the matte solid gray. And you're like, oh yeah, this is way better.
My camera died, so just so you know.
It died.
It's okay.
And one day we're going to have a proper camera setup.
Yeah, if you guys know anything about HDMI switchers that don't cost over $1,000, let me know.
Yeah. So we also have a couple of their engineering grade materials, flexible, and the flexible is really cool when it's printed.
Yeah, we have a video of that too. I think Jake was running his finger across it. Kind of looks like a follicle thing, just a little hexagon with little extrusions
Tentacles.
on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
tentacles. Yeah, it kind of looks like comb teeth, and then it just has some memory to it,
Right.
which is really cool.
So really cool material. And then we also have their tough resin. So the tough resin is designed to be as close to ABS as possible. That one, it's sort of a clear material, but it has a blue-green tint to it. So the interesting thing about this, there's a little bit more cleanup involved with resin-based printing. So when these come off the printer, you can't just be like, all right, I'm going to peel off the supports, and all right, I've got my functional part. Now you actually need to take these parts, dip them into isopropyl alcohol, and that acts as a solvent, and that helps get all of the kind of the residue resin off, because yeah, it hardens the plastic, but there's still going to be liquid resin on the surface of the print. So going through 2 different stages of isopropyl alcohol rinses that off, and then with the basic materials, it's recommended that you do a post-cure, so putting it in like a UV oven to really harden the part, and that's going to get you the maximum mechanical strength. But for the engineering grade materials, it's absolutely required. So these parts here have not been post-cured at all, aside from maybe sitting them in the window on a sunny day. I mean, nothing really too crazy. But
we are getting one. We're going to build our own.
Yeah. So actually today we should have the UV LEDs showing up. And temperature also makes a difference on how these materials cure. But what I've been finding is the more you start learning about this resin-based printing, the more you find out, okay, it's like with FDM printing. You can get started doing basic stuff really quickly, but to do more advanced stuff, you can go down a rabbit hole very, very fast.
Yeah, the one more material that we want to get maybe for some parts in-house would be the high temp.
Right.
And I think what it said was, like, this stuff, it starts, I forget there's a chemical reaction at like 40 degrees Celsius?
So the HDT of this material, which is the heat deflection temperature, so that's the temperature at which it will start to deform if you apply force to it. I believe it's 45 degrees Celsius, where like PLA has an HDT of 65 degrees Celsius, or somewhere in that ballpark. Now the high temp material that they have, once it's cured, has an HDT of 281 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, so for that you could actually be doing low temperature plastic injection molding. And there's a lot of people out there that's what they do. They 3D print basically mold inserts, and that's sort of what this is, but a mold insert into a regular injection mold, and then they're able to do test parts. So for that you could do maybe 1,000 parts injection molding using that 3D printed insert. So
and Stratasys did something
cool.
similar with FDM, but this,
Yes.
you don't get those layer lines like you would in FDM.
Yeah, so a lot of really cool applications. So if the things that we've printed so far, we've done one test mold for a project that we're working on, and then of course we had to do Yoda, because I mean everyone's got to do Yoda. One other thing to note about the resin-based printers is you can't decide to do just like a 10% infill. It's all or nothing with infill. So to save on material for this Yoda, before saving on material, if we would have printed this solid, it would have been 98 milliliters worth of material, and that's
equates to,
it's about $15. Or if you think of a milliliter as a gram of material, as far as volume goes, it's about that. Then what I did is I took the model into Mesh Mixer, hollowed it out. So it basically takes the outline of the model. You can have an offset. Yeah, basically shelling it. So I set my offset to 2.5 millimeters, and then it's really easy to put 2 holes in it too for draining. One is for draining the resin out, the other one is to let air in. And we went from 98 milliliters of material down to 38 milliliters worth of material. So not only a material savings, but also a time savings too, because otherwise it would have had to cure the entire layer when it's going through.
Yeah, on this one you end up getting some optical stuff going on just because it's a clear one, but I think on the other ones it would be a lot less.
So you did this Marvin as 100%.
Yep. And one thing, if you do have it hollow, it is still going to need to have a support structure on the inside. So when you hold this up to the light, or if you look at it in the slicing preview, you actually see the support structure in the you see the support structure on the inside of the model. So it's not completely hollow on the inside, but as hollow as you could.
And then like with like FDM printers, how you print something like flat, like this or this, you actually print stuff at an angle. So like this was printed roughly like this.
Yeah, so basically at a 45-degree angle on all 3 axes, or all 2 axes. No, all 3. Yeah, because it rotated at 45 degrees in the z-axis as well. And then there's a support structure. So it ends up hanging from the printer like this, and then you have the support structure going along this edge, and that makes it easy to trim off. But yeah, I don't know. It's just different. So learning how things are different. But I think that's kind of the Form 2 in a nutshell. We're going to continue posting little videos on our Instagram feed, just of different projects that we're working on.
And I think we'll probably do like an in-action video that we've done before for like the cubes and whatnot.
I'll definitely get some footage of it for this too. Just Drop them in there.
And then we are going to, we're going to add this to our lineup for doing custom 3D printing. So we've been getting requests for being able to do higher quality 3D prints, and the cost on this does go up. I mean, it goes up by a not small amount, but if you need something that has this type of surface finish, that has this level of detail,
accuracy.
Yeah, the resin-based printing is really the way to go.
Yeah, what kind of tolerances, do we know that yet?
I believe they
what do they advertise?
They want to have a minimum feature size of 100 microns, but you can do layer height down to 0.025 millimeters, where with FDM normally we do everything at 0.2 millimeters.
So 0.025. So that's
it's about a tenth.
So 25 micron versus 200 micron.
Yeah,
but
that's crazy.
Even if you compare a 100 micron part done in the resin versus a 100 micron part done in FDM, the resin part has a much better surface finish and is going to be more accurate.
I don't know if it's 100% isotropic, because that's a word that people like to throw around, but I don't know if it's truly isotropic, but it's definitely a lot closer, so the equilateral strength.
Right.
So.
Yeah, so layer delamination isn't as big of a thing with resin. That's not to say it's not a thing, but...
Yeah, and the raft that it prints, so to speak, is pretty thick and pretty bulky.
Yeah.
No, but you actually took one of these parts and actually drilled a hole.
I did. It machined pretty well. I mean, I didn't take like a giant power drill to it, but I drilled a hole in it. We're testing out like belt clip.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be something that'll be high temp later. We're using just this right now, so we'll see if we end up having a problem.
And even from like the FDM part to the Formlabs part, you could just tell the difference both in quality as well as just accuracy.
Yeah, it fit right away. We didn't have to mess with the fit, and it didn't. Yeah, it was good. I liked it.
So, and now it's literally right behind the cameras. We have a Raise 3D N2 Plus that we got in. We had to do a little bit of rearranging upstairs to get it into a spot that's not in the way. But we've been doing a couple different test prints. I think you've done a Benchy, and then so what, you're dialing in some of the temperature settings?
Yeah, so it does have an all-metal hot end, which can lead to some problems with PLA. For example, there's no PTFE liner on the inside, so you run into some issues if it doesn't quite have adequate enough cooling for the where the heat sink is, to prevent heat creep.
Active cooling?
Yeah, active cooling.
No.
So no, that's
yeah, it wouldn't be active
because
cooling.
it uses the same fan for active cooling on the print as it does for cooling the heat sink.
It doesn't just have a duct then, or
yeah, so it's ducted, so it directs it in the two places. So I've been messing with the temperature settings and a couple other things with the extruder. So I mean, the PLA is printing really well right now. So I mean, this was print number 2 or 3, and it's a really good.
Default was like what, 203?
205 for a printing temperature. Right now I'm printing at 235. If I drop it below 225, I start getting the extruder clicking. That could be solved by a combination of things. Well, I mean, I already seasoned the extruder with canola oil, so that's helping a little bit. But getting a deeper fan. So right now it's a 40 millimeter by 40 millimeter by 10 millimeter fan. Some people on their message boards recommend 40 by 40 by 15 millimeters. So even though it'll be spinning at the same RPM, it's going to move more volume of air across the heatsink. So that's something that we're looking at doing. So that was just a basic test print. We tested both extruders with that, and now we're working on testing the two-color printing, because we have some customer projects coming up that require two-color 3D printing. And so far, I mean, we'll have to see how the in-progress print is going, but so far it's doing the two-color pretty well. I mean, really good separation of color. Hasn't really ran into, as far as I can tell, again, hasn't ran into any jamming issues. So that may change, but just the default slicing settings out of the box, really good. Yeah.
You said that the Z offset was pretty bad when it showed up.
Oh,
though,
yes.
Which is probably just a shipping thing, but
Right.
most people wouldn't think to reset that if they're just buying a printer for the first time.
Yeah, if we
This is
would-
obviously not a first-time 3D printer.
Right.
Printer.
Yeah. If we would have just started printing without checking that Z offset for the build plate, we would have broken our build plate because it was about 2 millimeters too close to the build plate. And the build plate, it's a heated aluminum bed, and then it's a probably 1/8 inch piece of glass with build tack on it. And so it would have definitely broken the glass, and probably not. I think it would have just broken the glass and then of course trashed the build tack. So, I mean, really, that was the only thing that we changed. We didn't have to re-level it. Now, we haven't tried a full 12-inch by 12-inch print to see how level it is across the entire build plate.
We've gotten a lot of requests for baby Groots.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay, we're gonna do
It's a cool model. I like it a lot.
We will do a big baby Groot. I'm hoping to be able to do one in either hemp, beer, or coffee.
Giant
I
baby
think-
Groot. Giant baby Groot.
I think
Well, then we need to have Jeremy's friend paint it.
Yeah, we have an
pretty
intern
cool.
named Jeremy, and he's been really helpful around the shop. And he has a friend that doesn't have a lot of confidence in his artistic skills, but
he should.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
I
it's-
saw it. I was like, what? What is that?
What did he paint again?
So it was the old Groot model, the one that's dancing baby Groot with it's
Oh,
kind of
it's
just
like in a
it's
little
kind of
flower pot,
it kind of
basically?
it prints in one piece and it can rattle around. So it was just sitting in a box. I hadn't seen it for 2 years. We're not going to get any more buzz off of it off of Instagram. So I was just like, yeah, just take it, whatever. It was like see-through yellow. He brought it back and it was painted really well. That's actually on our Instagram, so you can go find that if you like. And yeah, so maybe just throw it to his friend and see what he does with it.
Yeah, that's one thing that we don't really do in-house is any sort of post.
Todd kind of
post-finishing
painted
stuff.
Oliver a little bit for CES.
I think he painted the tummy and like the ears and.
But then, like, it wasn't like nothing really after that.
Yeah.
Like,
But
yeah, I can do it, but
But then you look at people like Brian Glur and what his company is
Oh,
doing.
yeah.
Like where it's-
Power Up Props.
yeah, Power Up Props where it's just
They're
you do-
crazy.
Yeah.
They do the module from, I think that's what from Fallout, the monitor. And
Oh, like
he's
the
putting a
Pip-Boy
Raspberry
or-
Pi in it, and it's really cool. No, it's like just a old school monitor.
Okay.
yeah, and they have a YouTube channel where they actually they kind of catalog all the stuff that they do with it.
Yeah.
Like they did.
Printing, cleaning up, sanding, painting, antiquing. I think you call it antiquing, weathering.
Yeah.
And then they do gameplay stuff too.
I was reading somewhere
cool.
that putting, I never knew this, but you can actually, when you paint something, you paint a base coat, and then you put a little bit of mustard on it. So like think
What?
of steel.
Okay.
So you have like a silver part, and then when you're done painting that, you put a little bit of mustard, then you put your overcoat, then you wash the mustard away, and then it shows through like scuffs.
Okay.
It was really, really interesting. I saw that. I can't remember where I saw that at. But it was really interesting. It was like, oh, it's a mustard trick. I was like, what the
Mustard
What's
trick.
a
hell?
mustard trick?
And
Only good use for mustard in my book. I don't like it.
Oh, I'm a mustard.
yeah, you guys
fan.
should definitely check out Brian's.
Yes,
Brian's
Power
power up props. Very good.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll. You'll
He's a
have links in the
Lulzbot Mini.
descriptions, too.
Yep.
Currently,
And he uses a lot of 3D fuel, or 3D fuel.
he does. And where's I going with this?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Yeah,
But anyway.
while you're thinking, he does other stuff like the revolver from that game. I can't remember the name.
Destiny?
Of,
He has a Skyrim key, doesn't he?
Overwatch.
Okay.
Overwatch, Skyrim
Oh,
keys, stuff from Fallout. I can't think of other stuff they do off the top of my head, but they have. I think they have an Etsy or something to that effect.
I think so.
And you can buy those there if you want.
Okay, back to the Raise 3D. So one of the other cool things about this, we're hard on a lot of Kickstarter projects. If you're a longtime watcher of the show, you know that we were pretty down on Raise 3D. Well, not actually.
Not
No, that
really
was
down.
That's
That was-
one that we were probably the most optimistic about.
Yeah, we're like, all right, well, let's see how. I think we saw it in action at a couple different shows, and
Yeah.
then like they did not ship with a guide tube to start, and now they do. Because that was the one thing that I know I had concerns with. I was like, why do you not have a guide
and
tube?
they've-
The filament.
Yeah, so once they started shipping, they're very receptive to feedback from their customers. So, for example, from us, it was talking about the filament guide tubes, and I know that based on what I saw on the message boards, they've gotten that response from a lot of people. But things like upgrading the extruder, so now it's an all-metal extruder instead of just a standard one. They also changed some things with the heated build plate and how that's constructed, and what materials get used for that, and where the placement of the leveling screws are, and shipping. So they added a lot more clips in place so that it would ship solid.
It was a small bag of clips that I had
yeah.
at the end. It was
And
ridiculous.
well greased.
Yeah.
Oh
no, a
my
lot of,
God.
They wash your hands.
They had so much grease on their linear rods. It was like I spent probably 15 minutes with a Q-tip trying to just clean some of that up because
And
I'd much rather that than not have enough.
Yeah.
Than not have enough, and then you run into like screeching noises and damaging the linear rods. But
think
boy,
there
that was
was
a lot of.
So much grease that the hot "Don't Touch" sticker was just peeling
Just
off.
fell off.
Yeah.
it did show up on a skid, so if you are getting one, make sure you can accept skids at your location or home. It wasn't very heavy. Once we
No,
got
it's
it on the
just
dolly,
big.
it wasn't. Yeah, it was just big and bulky.
I'd
so,
say a good 4 inches of the right side of it are just for the filament that's sitting inside. So that's just kind of, it's nice that it's enclosed though.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a hefty, it's pretty solidly built. I mean, the linear rods that they use for the Z-axis, for example, it's like, I'm looking at it right now, it's got to be close to like 3/4 of an inch, 3/4 of an inch
and then,
rods, and
then like the lead screw itself.
yeah,
for
they
both
actually use
sides.
ball screws, I think.
So it's like John said, it's well built. It's great.
The lid is really nice too. The only thing that I have a problem with is that it's not square. So if you don't put it right, because it's just big, you can't tell.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be like an inch off, but then
Put a sticker on it.
also they say don't put the lid on during PLA printing.
And that is very true. Yeah, because
So-
if you have a lid on, then it's going to not allow enough airflow, and then you run into that issue where the extruder doesn't stay cool enough.
Yeah,
And then you run
it's
into
always the fight
jamming.
though with the direct drive is just keeping the head light, and this one's a very robust head.
Yeah.
So I think they're trying to cut weight anywhere they can. So
Yep.
any
And
other any extra weight.
I
is
think
just-
they tried to get it too where it was smaller both in the X and the Y direction of the head.
What-
you see some dual extruders and like the Rep 2X, and you know it's bulky, it's big.
Side by side.
And you look at the Taz one, that's bulky and big too.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever seen a bulkier extruder than the Taz dual extruder.
Is there a name for the kind of system that this has, where it has the 2 rails going through the head?
I'm sure there is a
remember
name
off the
for it,
top
but it's
of my
very
head.
similar to an Ultimaker printer.
Is that on the Zortrax too?
I
can't
think
remember.
so. Yeah, I think the Zortrax does a similar gantry.
Yeah, so instead of just having the 2 rails across, it has rails here and then rails here, and then something like that. It just, I don't know, ends up working out.
It seems to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you can't see it, which you can't, it's
We know you can.
yeah, it's right.
You can
It's
see
right
it
there for
somehow.
me. But yeah, the build size is 12 by 12 by
Or even on the
24.
screen.
So we're gonna do some sort of large test print with it, and then.
whistle.
But yeah, it's really the size of
Those were
a
2 years ago.
large mini fridge. Like if you think of like the tall ones that are like a half stack, it's pretty massive. So we're gonna have a little
Bigger
bit,
than a Cube Pro.
little difficulty. Yeah, it's like a Cube Pro with a Cube Pro on top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh shoot.
I think that's about it for the Raise 3D.
Yeah, so we can come back to that. But the Net A8 we're gonna put together, I think, on Monday or Tuesday. I'm gonna have Marcus put that together. Actually, no, he's gonna put that together tomorrow.
Ooh, okay.
So we should have that on Monday.
That's pretty much. It's like a Prusa ripoff?
Yeah, it's kind of like an i3.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah, it's just like an i3 ripoff that low cost. I think it was like $300. We also got Joseph Prusa's i3 Mark II.
Yeah.
That should be coming in sometime in like February.
That would
Yeah,
probably
'cause
be a
that's-
good comparison
Well, 'cause
video
when-
to make later.
Yeah, and
Just-
when we were
Price difference is pretty significant. But
Yeah, because the weight on those is pretty solid. And we did an interview with Joseph Prusa. This might actually be up by the time. I don't know which one's going to
We'll
end
see.
up being up first, but he's saying that they are shipping 3,000 units a month right now, and it's continuing to grow. Like that is an impressive amount of 3D printers. I mean,
It is about $1,000 shipped for the assembled
for the assembled one. And he says that they sell, I think it's like 80 to 20 or 90 to 10 kits versus assembled. They sell way more kits than they do the assembled.
we got the assembled one, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well, if you can see, we don't like post-processing. We don't like putting things together.
We
We have the ANET, but we're making an intern do
we like
it.
putting we like putting our spare parts together.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
kits are fun to put together, but yeah, it's just the time right now. I mean, we're so crunched. I mean, everything is.
And that's what Marcus really loves. So Marcus does a lot of our repair stuff downstairs and fixing printers. So if you send a printer in, most likely he is one of the guys that had his hands on it and worked on it. He actually has a couple printers himself, and that's what he looked for before Christmas. He's like, oh, I'm thinking about buying another printer. He's like, oh, which one are you gonna get? Are you gonna get a Lulzbot? Are you gonna get? He's like, no, I want something that I can put together. He's like, that's the requirement. I have to put it together. And so I think he's gonna have a blast.
Merry
bringing it in. Yeah. Here, you get to put this together
Well, 'cause
because
it's-
I don't want to.
And it's interesting because there's that many companies that have pulled away completely from doing kits. Lulzbot for a long time was doing both a kit and an assembled version. They said that the kit version was more labor intensive for them because of I guess I
You
don't
have to label
fully know
everything.
why.
You got to make sure that's in the right spot. Then there's probably more support questions too.
Yeah, that's been a big thing because it's not just your hobbyists anymore that were getting into it. It was kind of like people that weren't willing to put in the work to research how to put everything together. They wanted everything handed to them, and so that means more questions, a more demanding customer. And yeah, where at Prusa, there's such an active user group for all those printers that
They take up the service.
yeah, I don't
a
even
little
think
bit.
Prusa Research has to do much of the customer service. You know, for basic things like, oh, hey, my printer's not working. Why is that? They're more willing. People are more willing to troubleshoot and help others troubleshoot their printers?
Well, Monoprice was a great one when we were in CES, because I posted in one of the Monoprice Facebook groups about the new printers that we saw, and then somebody had down farther, somebody had a question about something, and then somebody else answered it and said, oh, this is how you do that, here's how you do this.
Yeah.
And so that's really great about the 3D printing community in general, is everyone's willing to help one another to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Yeah, to a certain extent. I mean, some 3D printing groups get too big, and then you get a lot of, well, for example, the Facebook 3D printing group right now. What's the best sub $300 printer?
Oh, there's like an internal meme about that.
Yeah,
and then there's an internal meme about the Baby Groot. That's why I mentioned it.
Everyone prints
It's a
Baby
good.
Groot.
It's a good print.
Because I printed the
I like
Race
it.
3D in there, and somebody was like, Baby Groot. And I'm like, God.
Really, guys?
Then we got into a little bit of a meme war, but
Yeah. But I don't know, I mean, those are the 4 printers, so it's, and we're keeping all of our printers here pretty busy.
yes,
Yeah,
we
so
are.
it's-
I think we have 9 Rep 2s. Like I said, we have 26 different printers. And Cube Pro officially, I think I mentioned this last time, officially closing everything down for that.
So the support's going to be around for another, I believe, 3 years from October
3 years.
2016. So I think they're going to be supporting like spare parts, materials, that type of thing until October of 2019. It might only be 2018. So
I have to look back in the email.
I don't know. One of these days when we have time, I'm going to rip apart that Cube Pro, going to put new electronics in, and yeah, I don't know. I know I heard it.
I was like, I thought it was my camera turning
Yeah,
off.
no. So we that Raise 3D is going behind us on that dual extrusion print, and I'm hearing clicking. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on with that. I think something might have peeled up from the raft. So
That's kind of what it sounded like, the
but
head hitting.
yeah, no, it's definitely still a learning process. But
Yeah.
With any new printer, they have their own quirks. Like we've been working with the Type A, we've been working with the LulzBots, the MakerBots. They just all have their own personality and different things that go wrong with them, or it's just kind of like, oh, we don't do that on this one because of this or that.
which doesn't always make our custom 3D printing service very efficient, because it's like, oh, we have 5 different slicers that we work with. We have 5, or many more than just 5 different machines where you have different build areas, different capabilities. Some of them are great at ABS, others are, well, they just can't because they don't have a heated build plate.
And that's what if you go to the support and you request a custom 3D print with an STL file or a Thingiverse file, if you can dive maybe a little bit more into with that kind of like what the part's going to be used for, I think that might help a little bit for us to choose a material. You want it in nylon. Okay, why do you want it in nylon?
Yeah, because I've got some people that say it needs to be done in ABS. Well, why?
Yeah,
You do-
ABS 100% infill.
It's like, no, that's not smart.
Yeah. In general, 100% infill is a bad idea.
But I mean, that's what we're there to, and,
Yeah.
and we're trying to build out our custom 3D printing page so it's a bit more intuitive, so you have some of that information beforehand. So, I mean, right now it's a very bare page. It's great if you know about 3D printing, but if you're thinking, all right, I designed something in 3D and maybe you want to have it printed, our page right now isn't the most helpful for that, but in the next month or so, it's going to become much more helpful. So I don't know. I mean, anything else that we want to cover?
Is
I
it
think
getting close to
I think
top
so.
of the hour?
Someone's trying
I
to
guess
call
there's
me.
There's a clock right behind
right there.
on the wall.
Yeah.
So,
I do
all
a
right.
phone call, so I have to.
Well, I think that covers it for us. So on behalf of myself, John Schneider, Eric Faldy, Jake Clark, I want to thank you for watching. Definitely stay tuned to our YouTube channel, and if you're listening to the audio version of this, still go take a look at our YouTube channel. We're starting to post everything from CES.
Yeah, a lot more CES interviews coming, so
Yeah, so
keep it locked.
But yeah, again, on behalf of all of us, thanks for watching.
Oh no, I need my drinks.
Hold on, I can get up.
Grab the little weenie man too.
Weenie Man!
Weenie man, buh.
What?
It's Beanie Man. He's a
Oh.
dance hall guy.
Okay.
Yeah, it's